Hello and welcome to Bitesize Legal, where we tackle legal issues one bite at a time. My name is Drew Jenkins and I'm an attorney licensed in Georgia and Alabama. And today we're going to be talking about settlement fees, legitimate or not. A little bit of history is in order. Prior to the financial crisis in 2008, real estate was booming, and a term called junk fees were cropping up in the industry. These are fees that are earned directly by the settlement agent, but are not clearly disclosed as fees earned by the settlement agent. Good examples of these are post-closing fees, archiving fees, title binder fees. They went to the bottom line of the settlement agent, but it wasn't always clear to the parties in the transaction that this was the case. Now, obviously, after the financial crash of 2008, profits pretty much diminished. A lot of companies went out of business, and this led to a period known as clean settlement statements, or clean HUD-1s, where there was really nothing disclosed other than the settlement agent fee, because everyone was competing on price for the dwindling business that remained. And here, even up through recently, times have been good again in real estate, and so we've begun to see the return of junk fees. Only this time it's a little bit harder to find them, and here is why. In 2015, the federal government passed a law and introduced regulations known as TRID. The purpose was the federal government felt that the old HUD-1 forms used in residential closings were unclear as to what fees were being earned by what parties. There were a lot of, we'll call them incentives, being paid to various parties to direct business in certain directions. The government wanted to make sure that if such relationships existed, that they were clearly disclosed on the form provided to the parties at closing. This new form that replaced the HUD-1 is known as the closing disclosure. In addition, the government feels that certain loan information is to be private, and as such, things such as loan account numbers and certain terms can no longer be shared with third parties absent written permission by the borrower. So this also led to the creation of a split closing disclosure. There is a closing disclosure that is provided to the borrower, and there is a separate closing disclosure that is provided to the seller, known as the seller CD. The seller CD is also typically provided to the realtors in the transaction. Now, the issue is, on the seller CD, you're not seeing any of the borrower's expenses. Now, if you're a party who has the ability to place fees on the CD, it becomes pretty easy to put fees on one CD and not on the other. So it becomes difficult for anyone to really total up how much you're earning. And this is what I mean by legitimate fees or not. You also have to remember that in marketing their services, settlement agents like to tout, well, our settlement agent fee is only, and they give a price. But what they may not disclose is that that does not include their other fees that are going to show up on the closing disclosure at closing that also go to their bottom line. Again, the post-closing fee is the one that is the most prominent that you find. So you as a consumer or as a realtor and are looking for a settlement agent, when you call and you ask, well, what's your settlement agent fee? They will give you a flat number. They will not necessarily tell you about their other fees. So you need to make sure when you ask them, what are all of the fees that I'm going to be charged in connection with this transaction? Now, there's a very easy way for the settlement agent to be clear about any sort of margin that they have built into it. If you are being reimbursed for a particular third-party charge, HOA, prepaids are an example. Another might be your lender overnights at FedEx. You can either say, or wait for FedEx, say this is being paid directly to FedEx and disclose the fee. Or you can say it's going to FedEx and then put in parentheses that it's a reimbursement, right? This way you're letting the party know that, hey, I am not earning any of this fee. This is a legitimate fee that is being paid out to a third party for legitimate work being performed. And in this way, you're keeping the CD clear. I would hope at some point that the government would revisit the issue and say, hey, the whole point of this is that the closing disclosure should be clear on who is earning what. And there have been the return of certain fees, the junk fees on the settlement agent side, that are making it difficult to see exactly what it is that the settlement agent is earning. Another example to look for in junk fees are the wire fees that are charged in part of a transaction. There are some banks who charge, $45 to $50 per wire. There are other banks that charge $0 per wire. If the cost of the wires are being passed on to the parties of the transaction, you can simply state for the number of wires it's being paid to the bank, or you can state it's a reimbursement. But if the fees are higher than that, or even if you have a question as a consumer or a realtor, you should question them. What are the actual fees being paid, and require the settlement agent to provide the invoice? If it's less than what they've billed on the settlement statement, well, you found another junk fee. So I just want to point out for all the consumers who are looking for settlement agent services, and for the realtors who are also looking for the optimal system, because it's not all about price, it's also about the professionalism and the service being provided, that you be aware and know to ask for more than just, hey, what's the settlement agent fee? You find it's low, but then you walk into the closing and the total fees being paid are significantly higher than you realized. Remember, if it's a legitimate fee being paid to a third party, the settlement agent will have a copy of the invoice. If they have a copy of the invoice and they don't want to disclose it, or they disclose it for less, you have found your junk fee. I hope this helps, and I personally hope for clean CDs to return again without a financial crash this time. But if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. If you are watching this on WeChat, you can respond in thread. Otherwise, feel free to shoot me an email. If there are any topics you would like, let me know, and we'll be sure to circle around to it. Until next time.